They walk among us, not as flesh and blood, but as invisible architects of human suffering. Ancient texts warned us about them. Gnostic mystics feared them. And today, right now, as you watch this video, they're influencing your thoughts, your desires, your very perception of reality. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories or fantasy creatures. I'm talking about the Archons, entities that have manipulated human consciousness for thousands of years. And here's what terrifies me most. They've evolved. They've adapted to our modern world in ways that make them more powerful, more invisible, and more dangerous than ever before. By the end of this video, you'll never see your daily life the same way again. Because once you learn to detect their signatures, you'll realize they're everywhere. In your phone, in your habits, in the systems that promise freedom but deliver slavery. The question isn't whether the Archons exist. The question is, are you ready to see them? Let me take you back 800 years to the deserts of Egypt, where Gnostic Christians hid forbidden texts in clay jars, desperately trying to preserve knowledge that powerful institutions wanted erased forever. In 1945, these texts were discovered near Nag Hammadi, and what they revealed should have changed everything we understand about human existence. The Gnostics spoke of the Archons, parasitic entities that exist in a realm just beyond our physical perception. But here's what makes their testimony so disturbing. They weren't writing mythology, they were writing field reports. They described the Archons with the precision of scientists documenting a phenomenon they'd observed directly through their spiritual practices. According to these ancient seers, the Archons are led by a false god they called the Demiurge, a blind, arrogant entity that mistakenly believes it created the universe. This cosmic tyrant rules over Archons who serve as its agents, working tirelessly to keep humanity imprisoned in ignorance, distracted by material desires, and separated from our true divine nature. The Gnostics describe the Archons as masters of deception who operate through specific mechanisms. They imitate reality. They cannot create but only copy and distort. They feed on human emotional energy, especially fear, despair, and anger. But here's where it gets absolutely crucial for us today. The Gnostics weren't just warning people in the ancient world. They were encoding information for future generations. They understood that the Archons would evolve their tactics, becoming more sophisticated as human civilization advanced. They left us breadcrumbs, clues about how to recognize Archonic influence, regardless of what form it takes. And when you understand these patterns, you'll see them operating at every level of modern society. So how do you detect something that's designed to be invisible? The Archons may be non-physical, but they leave fingerprints. And once you know what to look for, these signatures become glaringly obvious. First signature, inversion of truth. The Archons operate by taking something true, beautiful, or good, and inverting it into its opposite while maintaining the original appearance. This is why modern society often presents slavery as freedom, sickness as health, and confusion as enlightenment. Look at how we celebrate freedom of choice while being more psychologically enslaved than any generation in history. We have infinite entertainment options, but epidemic levels of depression. We have more connectivity than ever, but crushing loneliness. This is textbook Archonic inversion. Second signature, dependency systems. Archons don't want to destroy humanity, they want to farm us. They create systems that make us dependent on substances, on technologies, on ideologies, on institutions, anything that disconnects us from our inner sovereignty. Notice how modern life is structured around dependencies. We're dependent on screens for information, on corporations for food, on pharmaceutical companies for health, on financial systems for survival. Each dependency is a feeding tube. Third signature, constant distraction. The Gnostics said, Archons keep humans in a state of ignorance by overwhelming the mind with trivial concerns. Sound familiar? We live in an attention economy designed to fracture your focus into a million pieces. Notifications, news cycles, manufactured controversies, endless content streams, all engineered to keep your consciousness scattered and reactive rather than centered and aware. Fourth signature, emotional harvesting. This one's disturbing. The Archons feed on what the Gnostics called louche, emotional energy, particularly the lower frequency emotions. Modern media is an emotional harvesting operation. Every outrage, every fear-based news story, every algorithmic rabbit hole designed to trigger anxiety or anger. These aren't accidents. They're features. The system is working exactly as intended, generating massive amounts of emotional energy that these entities consume. Fifth signature, counterfeit spirituality. Perhaps their most insidious tactic is offering false paths to enlightenment that actually reinforce ego and separation. New Age materialism that treats spirituality as a consumer product. Spiritual bypassing that ignores real-world suffering. Guru cults that replace one authority with another. Any spiritual path that makes you more self-absorbed, more judgmental, more special than others. That's archonic interference. Now let's talk about how archonic influence manifests in the actual structures of modern civilization. Remember, the Archons don't need to possess people directly. They create self-perpetuating systems that do their work automatically. The financial system. Look at modern banking and finance through the archonic lens. The system runs on debt, which literally means binding in Latin. Billions of humans are bound to financial obligations that require constant labor just to service interest. You work not to create, not to contribute, but to pay for your past consumption. The system ensures that most humans spend their lives in a state of financial anxiety, a low-frequency emotion that generates massive amounts of harvestable energy. And here's the kicker. The money itself is created from nothing, but your labor to pay it back is absolutely real. Energy extraction at a civilizational scale. The pharmaceutical complex, this one's subtle. Notice how the medical establishment has shifted from treating disease to managing symptoms while creating lifelong customers. The rise of psychiatric medications that alter consciousness in ways that make people more compliant, less emotionally dynamic, easier to control. I'm not saying all medicine is bad. Antibiotics save lives, surgery repairs bodies, but the system has been infiltrated by an archonic principle: keep people functional enough to work, but never truly well, never fully awake. The education system, designed in the industrial era to create obedient workers, modern education still operates on archonic principles. It trains children to seek external validation through grades, to sit still and comply, to accept information without questioning, to compete rather than collaborate. It fragments knowledge into separate subjects, preventing students from seeing the interconnected whole. It rewards memory and repetition over creativity and critical thinking. And it burdens young adults with crushing debt before they've even begun their lives. The result? Generations of humans trained from childhood to be manageable, predictable, and dependent. The technology trap. Here's where the Archons have achieved their masterpiece. We carry devices that track our location, monitor our communications, predict our behavior, and deliver precisely calibrated psychological manipulation disguised as convenience. Social media platforms run on algorithms designed to trigger dopamine responses, creating genuine addiction while harvesting data about our deepest fears and desires. The technology promises connection but delivers isolation. It promises knowledge but delivers carefully curated information bubbles. It promises empowerment but makes us dependent on systems we don't understand and can't control. The entertainment industry, bread and circuses for the digital age. The Archons understood that the most effective prison is one where the inmates love their cells. Modern entertainment keeps consciousness in a perpetual state of passive reception. We binge-watch stories about other people's lives instead of living our own. We experience synthetic emotions on demand, which actually trains us to prefer artificial stimulation over genuine feeling. We consume narratives that normalize archonic values: violence as entertainment, sex without love, power without responsibility, wealth without purpose. But the Archons don't just work through institutions, they work through you. Through your habits, your thoughts, your unconscious patterns. This is where detection becomes personal and powerfully practical. The voice of doubt. Ever notice that critical voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough, not smart enough, not worthy enough? The Gnostics would say, that's not your voice, that's archonic interference. This internal critic doesn't motivate you to improve, it paralyzes you with shame and fear. It keeps you small, keeps you from expressing your gifts, keeps you seeking validation outside yourself. Addiction patterns. Any behavior that you can't stop doing even though it harms you is likely archonic in origin. The mechanism is simple. Create a craving, offer a false solution, harvest the emotional energy of the cycle. This applies to substance addictions but also to behavioral addictions. Checking your phone compulsively, scrolling social media for hours, binge eating, compulsive shopping, pornography, gambling. The pattern is always the same. Temporary relief followed by increased emptiness, creating the craving for more. Victim consciousness. The Archons love when humans adopt a victim identity, not because suffering isn't real, it absolutely is, but because victim consciousness makes you powerless. It places the locus of control outside yourself. It generates resentment and blame, which are delicious, low-frequency emotions for archonic feeding. True healing acknowledges pain but reclaims power. Archonic interference keeps you stuck in the pain and identified with it. The comparison trap. Social media has weaponized comparison in unprecedented ways. You measure your behind-the-scenes reality against everyone else's highlight reel, creating perpetual dissatisfaction. The Archons feed magnificently on envy and inadequacy. This keeps you focused externally, seeking validation through likes and followers rather than developing genuine self-worth. Analysis, paralysis, overthinking as a form of resistance. When you're stuck in endless analysis, planning, and preparation, you're not actually moving forward. The Archons love this because it keeps you in your head and out of embodied action. It creates the illusion of progress while ensuring nothing changes. Some people spend their entire lives preparing to live rather than actually living. Now here's the truth that will set you free. The Archons are powerful, but they're not all powerful. The Gnostics taught that humans possess something the Archons lack and desperately envy: the divine spark, direct connection to the true source. This is why they work so hard to keep us disconnected from it. But once you remember who you really are, their influence collapses. Strategy 1. Cultivate inner stillness. The Archons operate through mental noise and emotional reactivity. When you develop the ability to quiet your mind through meditation, contemplation, or simple presence, you create a space where archonic influence cannot penetrate. This isn't about stopping thoughts, it's about watching them without identification. When you can observe the mental chatter without believing it, you've reclaimed your power. Start with just 5 minutes a day of sitting in silence. No phone, no music, no distractions. Just you and your breath. This simple practice is revolutionary because it breaks the addiction to constant stimulation. Strategy 2. Reclaim your attention. Your attention is your most valuable resource, and the archonic system is designed to steal it. Fight back by becoming ruthlessly selective about what you give your attention to. Delete social media apps from your phone. Turn off all non-essential notifications. Create tech-free zones in your home and tech-free times in your day. Read books instead of scrolling articles. Have face-to-face conversations instead of texting. Watch your attention like a hawk because it's not just your attention, it's your life force. Strategy 3. Break the dependency cycles. Identify every area where you're unnecessarily dependent on external systems. Can you grow even a small amount of your own food? Can you learn to cook from scratch? Can you fix basic things instead of replacing them? Can you entertain yourself without screens? Each dependency you break is a feeding tube you've severed. Start small, but start. The goal isn't to become completely self-sufficient. That's unrealistic in the modern world. But to reduce unnecessary dependencies and remember that you're more capable than the system wants you to believe. Strategy 4. Emotional sovereignty. Stop letting external events dictate your internal state. This doesn't mean suppressing emotions. That's actually archonic because it creates inner division. It means feeling your emotions fully while not being controlled by them. When the news tries to make you afraid, feel the fear, understand it, and then choose your response consciously. When social media tries to make you envious, feel the envy, examine it, and then return to gratitude for what you have. This is emotional alchemy, transforming lower frequency emotions into higher frequency responses. Strategy 5. Cultivate discernment. The Archons imitate truth, but they cannot create it. Learn to tell the difference. Truth tends to be simple, empowering, and consistent. It doesn't require you to diminish others to feel elevated. It doesn't create dependency or fear. It doesn't fragment your attention or hijack your emotions. Archonic counterfeits always have a hook. They promise freedom while creating bondage, promise knowledge while increasing confusion, promise connection while fostering separation. Train yourself to feel the difference. Strategy 6. Create beauty and meaning. The Archons cannot create, they can only imitate and corrupt. When you create something genuinely beautiful or meaningful, art, music, writing, a garden, a meal, a conversation, a moment of true connection, you're generating frequencies that archonic entities cannot touch. This is why totalitarian systems always attack artists and poets first. They're the most dangerous people to archonic control because they remind others that beauty and meaning are real and accessible. Strategy 7. Build authentic community. The archonic strategy is divided and isolated. Your counter-strategy is to unite and connect, but not in the shallow ways the system promotes. Create real community with people who see you, challenge you, support you, and grow with you. These relationships become nodes of light in the archonic darkness. When enough people wake up and connect authentically, a network forms that the Archons cannot penetrate. Strategy 8. Embody your truth. Knowledge without action is powerless. You can understand everything I've shared in this video, but if you don't live it, nothing changes. The Archons maintain power through the gap between what we know and what we do. Close that gap. If you know social media is harmful, delete it. If you know your job is soul-crushing, create an exit plan. If you know a relationship is toxic, establish boundaries. Your embodied truth is a weapon against archonic influence because it makes you unpredictable, ungovernable, and uncontrollable. Before we close, I want to offer a perspective that transformed my own relationship with all of this. It would be easy to make the Archons into villains and us into victims, but that's actually an archonic trap. The victim-villain narrative keeps us locked in lower consciousness. What if the Archons are playing a necessary role in human evolution? What if they're providing the resistance that allows us to develop spiritual strength? Gold is refined through fire. Consciousness evolves through challenge. The archonic pressure might be exactly what humanity needs to wake up, grow up, and claim our divine inheritance. This doesn't mean we passively accept archonic influence. It means we recognize it as the adversary that makes us sharper, stronger, more conscious. Every time you resist an impulse to check your phone, you're building willpower. Every time you choose presence over distraction, you're strengthening awareness. Every time you question a narrative instead of accepting it, you're developing discernment. The Archons might have been running the show for thousands of years, but something is changing. More humans are waking up than ever before. The old systems are becoming increasingly obvious and brittle. The lies are harder to maintain. The manipulation is more desperate and therefore more visible. You are part of this awakening. The fact that you've watched this far means you're not content with comfortable illusions. You want truth, even when it's uncomfortable. That desire is itself the divine spark the Gnostics talked about. The part of you that cannot be fooled, cannot be bought, cannot be controlled. So here's my challenge to you. For the next 7 days, practice just one of the strategies I've shared. Just one. Pick the one that resonates most strongly and commit to it fully for a week. Notice what happens. Notice what resistance comes up. Notice what tries to pull you back into the old patterns. Because here's what I've learned. The Archons maintain power through our unconsciousness. The moment you become aware, really aware, their influence begins to collapse. They're not all-powerful. They just rely on us staying asleep, and you're awake now. You can't unsee what you've seen. This isn't about fear. This isn't about paranoia. This is about empowerment through awareness. The Archons are real, their influence is real, but so is your divine nature. So is your capacity for wisdom, love, creativity, and conscious choice. These qualities are your birthright, and no archonic system can ultimately suppress them. The war for human consciousness is real, and it's being waged right now in every moment of your daily life. Every choice you make either feeds the archonic system or starves it. Every moment of awareness is an act of rebellion. Every expression of authentic love, creativity, or truth is a victory. The Archons are among us, but so is the divine, and you get to choose which one you serve with your attention, your energy, and your life. Choose wisely. The future of human consciousness depends on people like you making that choice consciously, courageously, and consistently. If this video resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Leave a comment about your experience detecting or defeating archonic influence in your own life. And subscribe, because this conversation is just beginning. Remember, you are not a powerless human having a spiritual experience. You are an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience, and that changes everything. Stay awake, stay sovereign, and I'll see you in the next video.